Serial killers, they're easy to play.
It's so good to see you, Missy. Good to see you, Missy.
You wanted us here to talk about a murder. Now we're here, so talk.
Well, I wasn't interested in playing a serial killer. That to me is sensational and not really interested in that. You see enough of that. It was the relationship, which is what this is about, the relationship between his daughter, who the story focuses on, and her father. He was a loving, sweet dad to her when growing up. He was a truck driver. And then at 15, she found out he was a serial killer, and then how to reconcile the love of your father with this monster is what I found interesting.
I was familiar with Melissa Moore's real life story and who she was and her impact on the culture of true crime. And her podcast, Happy Face, was so beautifully created and produced, and she's extremely vulnerable and she shares her heart with the world. But most of all, what was exciting to me about this project was that it was a different take on true crime. You know, it's not from the killer's perspective. It is not glorifying the killer. There are no acts of violence against women in the show. And what is most exciting to me is that it gives us a peek into Melissa Moore's life as an advocate for victims of true crime, whether it be the victims and the victim's family or the perpetrators' families, and how both sides of the courtroom are traumatized by this act of violence for the rest of their lives and for their generations to come.
I read Melissa's book, and he as a character, even though he's a real life person, he as a character is really told from Melissa's point of view. So that's where I got most of the way I portrayed him. And then, just the newspaper accounts and things like that.
I was really struck by Melissa's real life gift of empathy. And that was really important to me to make sure was a part of her characterization, the way that she really connects with people and can hear them and listen to them. I think that is a gift that she's been given and is the polar opposite of what her father was and is. And again, just shows that she is not her father. And that's what she's afraid of becoming, but she never will be.
Serial killers, for the most part, they're easy to play in a sense because they really don't have emotions. Everything is kind of at a distance, taking responsibility, ownership of what they, accountability that was someone else, and is the way they look at it. So it's not all that difficult.
All of the scenes with Dennis Quaid are equally fantastic because he's incredible. He's an incredible actor, and equally uncomfortable because I can't imagine what they would have been like for Melissa to navigate. She gave us access to all of the letters that her father wrote her. And it is so heartbreaking to, navigate the psyche of having a family member who committed such a heinous crime because you knew them before that crime and you knew them after. And unfortunately, you love the person before. So how do you reconcile that with the person they became after?
The scenes I look forward to the most, and I think the most interesting is when he's in prison and she comes to visit. Their visits are so few and far between. They mean so much to him. And there's a lot going on underneath the surface. That's the interesting part of this. This is what separates this from other stories of serial killers, and it's the human factor, and how the real Melissa has become an advocate for victims of serial killers, and also there's the other victims, which are the families of these killers, how it turns their life upside down, and what they have to live with.
Melissa was incredibly open, generous, and also such an educator about the machine of true crime and how uncomfortable and inappropriate it can be to the victims and the victims' families, and how anytime one of these stories is remounted or refictionalized, that it re-victimizes the victims' families. We were extremely aware of that. With her help and guidance and love, we tried to be so thoughtful and aware of how this would be affecting the victims'